Fate is preparing him for new trials, and he has to fight for the right to be a father. The life of a man in his 40s, a builder by profession, changes abruptly when he meets a young woman. Moving in with her, investing in apartment renovation, having a baby, everything seems like the perfect start. But soon his world begins to crumble. The woman and her mother become addicted to alcohol, and his own efforts prove futile. Conflicts escalate, and the protagonist finds himself on the verge of despair. In an attempt to save himself and his son, he decides to take a radical step to take the boy to himself. However, fate prepares him new tests, and he will have to fight for the right to be a father and save the remnants of his soul. I woke up early in the morning, before the sun had even broken through the dense fog. It was an unremarkable day, just an ordinary Monday, when I had to get up and go to work. But something was wrong inside me. I felt tired, even though I had slept for quite a while. Perhaps it was the fact that my life had long ago ceased to bring joy. Everything seemed to be there: work, family, home. But then why did I feel so empty? I'm 40 years old, and I've lived most of my life in the city, building houses for other people. Being a builder is not an easy job, but it is a satisfying one. Every day you see the results of your labor, and it's a joy. I've always been proud of what I do, and I've tried to do my job as responsibly and efficiently as possible. However, lately I started to feel that all my efforts are wasted. Something broke inside me, and I stopped enjoying even the work that used to be a source of pride for me. My wife, Anna, sleeps next to me. She is 10 years younger than me, and when we met, she was so cheerful and full of energy. We fell in love, and I went to live with her. Since Anna lived with her mother, Mary, who never worked and spent her days in front of the TV, the apartment was in need of major repairs. I used all my skills and invested my savings to get the place in order. 2 years later, we had a son, little Joshua, who is now 6 years old. But a lot has changed over the years. At first glance, our lives seemed to go on as usual. I worked, Anna took care of the house and the baby, and Mary stayed at home as before. But as time went on, I began to notice that Anna had changed. She became less open, cold, distant, and smiled less often, and the conversations between us became shorter and shorter. Instead of discussing future plans or sharing our thoughts, we focused more and more on domestic matters. And Mary, instead of being supportive, only added to the tension with her constant comments and criticism. Sometimes I thought she was deliberately trying to spoil our family life. Anna and her mother often had parties, inviting friends over for drinks. They invited me to join them, but I refused. Alcohol was never my weakness, and I had no time for such things. Work took up almost all my day. But gradually I began to notice that Anna began to drift away from me. Our conversations stopped altogether. Mary was always dissatisfied and always nagging. Conflicts became part of our communication. The work that used to give me satisfaction now seemed routine and meaningless. I continued to work as hard as I could, hoping it would make our lives better, but every day I felt more and more tired and drained. The family that had once been a source of joy and inspiration to me now seemed alien and distant. One evening, after another day of work, I came home to find that Anna and Mary had thrown another party. There were bottles of wine on the table and their friends sitting around them. I tried to discuss it with Anna. I wanted to ask everyone to leave the house, but she just waved me off, saying that it wasn't my apartment and I had no right to interfere. That was the last time we tried to discuss our problems. After that conversation, there was a wall between us that could not be broken down. Several months passed. They dragged on slowly, like a viscous swamp that sucked deeper and deeper. Every day began the same way, with cold silence at breakfast, with glances full of resentment and alienation. Anna was always finding reasons for discontent. She thought I was coming home too late from work, or that my earnings weren't enough to maintain the standard of living she craved. She wanted more: a new car, fancy clothes, expensive restaurants. Everything I brought home seemed insufficient. Mary, her mother, was always on her daughter's side. She never missed an opportunity to remind me what a loser I was. that I couldn't provide for my family properly. Her criticism became more and more scathing, and I could feel my nerves tightening like a string, ready to burst at any moment. Anna, inspired by her mother's words, was also becoming more aggressive. Our quarrels turned into real battles, where every word was a blow. I tried to explain that I was working to the limit, that I was giving all my energy to provide for my family. But my words were drowned out by the noise of her claims and accusations. I felt completely helpless in the face of this flood of negativity. My fatigue was building up, and soon I could no longer distinguish between work stress and family stress. Everything blended into one gray mass of hopelessness. But the hardest part was seeing how it was affecting our son. He was becoming withdrawn, avoiding socializing, hiding in his room. I knew he could hear our arguments, see our tension, and it tore at my heart. I wanted to protect him, to give him the love and care I lacked. But how? When even the simplest attempts to get in touch with my wife ended in another scandal. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, when Anna again threw a tantrum over some small things, I suddenly realized that I can no longer tolerate this hell. Something inside me clicked, and I realized I couldn't go on like this. I got up from the table, walked to the bedroom, and started packing. Anna watched me silently, with a strange expression on her face, a mixture of surprise and relief. Apparently, she too was tired of it all. The divorce dragged on for many months. The legal procedures, the fight for custody of their son, it was like an endless nightmare. In the end, the court left my son with Anna. I didn't argue, realizing that at this point it would be the best decision for him. But the pain of losing my son, of not being able to see him every day, was unbearable. At first, it was hard to get used to the loneliness, to the fact that now I live alone in an empty rented room where the echo of footsteps reminds me that no one is around. But the work helped distract me. I plunged headfirst into projects, trying to make every detail perfect. Gradually, I began to notice that my efforts were not going unnoticed. I started getting promotions. First small promotions, then bigger ones. I became responsible for large construction projects, and this gave me the opportunity to earn more money. The money flowed, and after 3 years, I could finally afford to buy a nice apartment. I bought new furniture, upgraded appliances, and made some repairs to the apartment. But despite all these improvements, the feeling of emptiness never disappeared. Every night when I came home, I felt the weight of loneliness weighing on my shoulders. Joshua only came over on weekends. One day when I was coming home, the workday was dragging on endlessly, and thoughts of home, of peace and quiet, were the only consolation. I was walking down the street, absorbed in my own thoughts, when suddenly my phone vibrated in my pocket. Joshua's name popped up on the screen. His calls were always rare, so I answered it immediately, feeling slightly anxious. "Dad, Grandma passed away." The news took me by surprise. Although Mary was the cause of many of my problems, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for my son. He had lost someone close to him, and he needed support. I immediately went to his house. When I opened the door and entered the house, the first thing I heard was Joshua crying softly. He was sitting on a chair in the corner of the kitchen with his face in his palms. His eyes were red and swollen with tears. Anna stood next to him, but her expression remained cold and indifferent. She didn't even seem to notice my arrival until I approached the table. I stopped beside Joshua, sat down, and hugged him, telling him that everything was going to be okay. We talked for a bit, and I offered to take him to my house for the weekend. Anna agreed, and we left. During those days spent with Joshua, I felt something inside of me begin to come alive. We took walks in parks, enjoying the fresh air and space, went to the movies, choosing movies we both liked, and just talked. These moments of sharing small joys together reminded me how important my son was. He was my only real connection to the past, but also a bright beacon for the future. Every day I realized more and more that Joshua was the most precious thing I had. He gave my life meaning and strength to move forward. I realized that I wanted to spend more time with him, to be there for him, to support him in every situation, especially since Anna continued to drink alcohol and no one could keep her away, not even the realization that she had a child. She had a new lodger in her apartment, a man who became her drinking partner, and Joshua was witnessing the drinking. So I took the important step of asking Anna to let Joshua live with me. At first, she flatly rejected the offer. Perhaps it was hard for her to imagine her son living apart from her. But over time, perhaps realizing that she was not doing a good job of parenting herself, or that Joshua's presence was a hindrance to her and her new partner, she reconsidered. Seeing how happy Joshua was with me, how we were getting along, and how attached I was to him, she finally agreed, but with one condition. I had to pay her a large amount of compensation and then make monthly payments. I had no other option and accepted her terms. Thus began a new chapter in my life. Joshua moved in with me, and we started living together. Of course, there were a lot of challenges. Schoolwork, homework, financial issues, all of it required attention and effort. But we managed. I continued to work, but now I did it not only to earn money, but also for the sake of our common future. We tried to find a balance between work and rest, paying attention to each other. Every morning when I saw Joshua getting ready for school, the smile on his face as he left the house, I felt like everything I had been through was worth it. We became a true team, supporting each other in every circumstance. Yes, sometimes there were challenges, but we learned to solve them together. And although the future remained uncertain, I knew one thing. The main thing was not to give up and continue to believe in the best. After all, with such an important person by my side as my son, any obstacles seemed surmountable.